Back with us on the SportsMax Zone. Football continues to dominate the show. On Sunday, 12 of Europe's biggest clubs agreed to form a new midweek competition, the European Super League ESL. The competition will be governed by its founding members and is intended to rival the Champions League. Who are those 12 clubs, you ask? Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, Arsenal, Inter, Liverpool, Manchester United, Spurs, Man City, Juventus, Chelsea, AC Milan and Barcelona. They say they plan on adding at least 3 more founding members, bringing it to 15, and want to begin play as soon as is practical. The clubs say the formation of the ESL comes at a time when the global pandemic has accelerated the instability in the existing European football economic model. The first chairman of the ESL, the Real Madrid chairman, Florentino Perez, says, "Football is the only global sport in the world with more than 4 billion fans, and our responsibility as big clubs is to respond to their desires." Meanwhile, the former chairman of the European Clubs Association and chairman of Juventus, Andrea Agnelli, is backing the ESL. He says, "Our 12 founder clubs represent billions of fans across the globe and 99 European trophies. We have come together at this critical moment, enabling European competition to be transformed, putting the game we love on a sustainable footing for the long-term future, substantially increasing solidarity. We are giving fans and amateur players a regular flow of headline fixtures that will feed their passion for the game while providing them with engaging role models." German clubs Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund, along with the French powerhouse Paris Saint-Germain, have not signed on to the ESL. Bayern's chief executive Karl-Heinz Rummenigge says he's convinced the current structure in football guarantees a reliable foundation and that the Super League will not solve the financial problems of European clubs that have arisen as a result of the pandemic. UEFA, they've released a joint statement in concert with England's Football Association, the Premier League in England, the Spanish Football Federation, La Liga, the Italian Football Federation and Serie A in condemning the ESL. Simon Evans is still with us. Simon, I just want to hear your take first before we go into specific questions about this ESL.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's very interesting. It's a story I've been working on a lot for Reuters over the last couple of days. It's been a very intense, busy spell of reporting on this one. And really, you know, the interesting thing here in Britain is that I think it's managed to unite the country for the first time, really, since the referendum on the European Union. I mean, you've got Brexiteers and Remainers agreeing, left and right, politically, monarchist, Republican. Everyone agrees that this is a bad idea. You know, the supporters of this plan say it's going to bring a greater sustainability to the game, but you know, it really at the moment it looks like the game is split down the middle, and we're looking at possibly a long war of attrition and legal cases, and the lawyers are going to be the real benefiters of this in the short term.
Simon, at points since last night, I've been wondering if I've been missing something. Because I heard and watched Gary Neville's reaction to Martin Tyler in his podcast for Sky. I watched him in the Sky studio with Mika Richards and Roy Keane. I've heard several other leading football voices in the British game speak out about this. Today on the BBC World Service, the programming was dominated by the ESL. I find that remarkable. And I still was wondering if I was missing something, because based on my reading, the ESL will not replace the domestic league. The teams still will play in the Premier League, but rather than play Champions League midweek, they are saying we're not playing Champions League. What we'll play instead is the European Super League, the ESL. So on Champions League match days, we'll play ESL, and on the weekends and otherwise designated by the fixture computer, we will play Premier League. So in that context, what is the hue and cry about? And I ask from the perspective, everybody reacting to the news makes it seem as if these teams are going to break away and just play ESL Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
No, I mean, that's not the case at all. But I think what would be the impact on the Premier League, and the argument that we will hear tomorrow, because the 14 clubs who remain in the Premier League who aren't part of the big six who are joining this breakaway, which isn't a breakaway from the Premier League, you're absolutely right about that, let's be clear. But their argument will be, okay, one of the excitement of the Premier League, one of the exciting elements of it is the qualification for the Champions League. The top 4 go into the Champions League every year. You have to earn that, you have to fight for that. West Ham are battling with Liverpool for it at the moment. Other teams are in contention. even if a team runs away with the title like we've seen Manchester City do a couple of times, there's still that battle for the top four and for the Europa League places. That goes with this, because Liverpool and Manchester United and the other teams won't have to qualify for this European Super League, because they will have automatic places. It doesn't matter, Arsenal and Tottenham, I don't know in what category they are counted as elite teams in Europe, but Arsenal is a mid-table Premier League team, and they're going into this category. They will spend for 23 years, according to this agreement, guaranteed place in this Super League. And it doesn't matter if Leicester City finish second in the league. Doesn't matter if Leicester City win the Premier League. They won't be playing in this European competition.
But they can play Champions League, Simon, and we've heard that the Champions League, as it is a closed shop, and the likes of West Ham and Leicester and Villa and other middling clubs, Leeds, can't get into the Champions League because of the ring fence that the Liverpools, Man Uniteds and Cities and the Chelseas have put on the competition. And with this new coefficient system that is reflected under the revamped Champions League structure that UEFA will roll out, that situation is worse. So for those who've been yearning for Champions League and wanting to play it, they now have the opportunity to play it while these big boys play Premier League and ESL. What's the big deal?
Because there won't be a Champions League if there's a Super League.
I understand.
That's the problem with that theory. I mean, today there was a question put to Alexander Seferin, the president of UEFA. Would he accept this idea that's being floated by people in support of the Super League, that the Champions League is a feeder league to the Super League? I mean, this is the premier competition in the world. The final draws more viewers than the Super Bowl does. And to suggest that it becomes a feeder league for a closed shop championship is something that's not going to be accepted by UEFA, whatever personal opinions we might have about it. Now, what I like about it is I do think football fans like the idea of seeing the best play the best more often.
I do.
And I'm not sure that the Champions League format and expanding the group stage and having 36 teams and those group stage games, which can be very one-sided at times, I'm not sure that's what fans want. So I can see in that something, but I think a lot of people have a problem with not having to qualify for it. And with the automatic places, no promotion, no relegation, guaranteed place no matter what you do.
Simon, before the game earlier today, Liverpool boss Jurgen Klopp, he spoke out. He said that, he didn't really support the ESL, but really and truly it was not up to him and the players. How do you feel about, if more managers were to come out and speak out about it, or even the players? Because one of the things I realize is if a player is playing for the ESL, they may not be able to represent their national team, which is a big deal for many players.
Yeah, I mean, if the sanctions the UEFA talking about come into play, well, there's some very radical ones. I mean, we had a story tonight with a member of the UEFA Executive Committee, who's the chairman of the Danish Football Association, Jasper Moller, who said he expects on Friday the UEFA Executive Committee will expel 3 of the 4 teams in the Champions League semi-finals this season immediately, that you won't have Chelsea versus Real Madrid because they'll be kicked out. And the only team left in the competition would actually be Paris Saint-Germain, who was supposed to play another rebel club, Manchester City. Now, whether that happens or not, and I'm skeptical that that will happen, but that's the kind of talk that's going on. Seferin's talking about banning players from playing in the Euros if they join this league. So there's a lot of heat at the moment around this issue, and there will be for quite some time. I will say this, though. I speak to colleagues in Spain and Italy, and there isn't the kind of febrile reaction there that there is in England. I think it touches on something, the traditions in English football, the idea of promotion and relegation, the stories about Nottingham Forest getting promoted and winning the European Cup the next season, 2 seasons later. Those kind of things are very much part of the DNA of English football. And in Italy and Spain, it's always been about the big clubs. So there's a different mood there, but it's significant there's no German or French teams joined up to this. And I am skeptical of whether this gets off the ground if there's only 3 countries involved in it.
Definitely. But Simon, do you even get the idea that, this ESL conversation and, of course, the pushback is just a way to ensure that the bigger clubs get, more money moving forward, or, a bigger piece of the pie, as they'd like to say?
That's certainly what's happened many, many times in the past. Every time we have these negotiations every 4 years for deciding the format and the financial distribution, primarily for the Champions League. These rumours emerge that there's going to be a breakaway, then there's a meeting and the big clubs get more out of the deal with the Champions League. But this has gone a step further. This has never happened before, that these teams have actually set up an organisation, a company, declared that they're leaving UEFA's competitions and setting this up. So it's gone beyond, I think, now that negotiating tactic that a lot of us thought it was until Sunday. And I think we're now into a full split within football. And the only question is, do they find these extra teams and set up a 20-team league and it takes off? Do they get expelled from their domestic competitions? Because the Premier League laws, and this is an interesting point that your viewers might not have picked up on some of the internet coverage. The Premier League's laws state clearly which competitions clubs are allowed to join. And the Community Shield is there, the Carabao Cup, all these other competitions, Champions League. There's no mention of any Super League there. And in order to add that competition to the list, the other clubs in the Premier League have to vote for it. In other words, the 14 opposed to the Big Six have a veto on this. So I'm not quite sure how that would happen without them just riding railroad over the rules of the Premier League.
Simon, you've spoken a lot of truth in this interview, which is why we sent for you, because you are the man with your finger on the pulse. This story has no chance of dying anytime soon. There's a lot more to speak about, and we will call on you again. Suffice to say that in a perverse kind of way, I'm not sorry for UEFA, because they've done badly by how they've managed the competition, and self-interest is here. So I'm not sorry for them at all. Anyway, we'll talk more, Simon. All the best to you.
All the best. Cheers. Thanks a lot.
Good. Right. So I seem to have a different view. I welcome this. Well, Mariah, I welcome the Super League. Lance, I welcome it.
My question on you welcoming the Super League is, are you not worried about when we think about football, it's about, helping the other teams, giving the other teams incentive to move up. Aren't you concerned about those teams?
I'll answer your question frontally, but let me hear from Lance first.
Well, to be honest, I'm keen to see what happens when Richard Masters, the CEO of the English Premier League, meets with the 14 teams in England tomorrow and see what they discuss. And interesting that Simon just mentioned that there's more of a hue and cry in England than other places in Europe. But the key issue for me, and Simon used the word a couple of times when we spoke to him just now, the split. The split. If there's no unity and no unifying position and synergy, this is a problem for football. So at the base of it, that's where my problem lies. It's a split. I hear UEFA and FIFA talking about banning players and so on. You have to be careful when you go down that road because there are legal issues there. And I just think football doesn't need this at this time.
Yeah, look, where banning players is concerned, that's going to be a huge one, because there's European competition law as it regarding competition that has set down rulings in basketball and in cycling, where those they offer precedent for each side of this argument. So it's not a done deal that if you take them to court, you can stymie the efforts of the ESL. But Mariah, you asked the question about the culture of the game, the welfare issue, the various issues that you plugged into that question. Here's the thing. In 1992, when the Premier League in England started, before the Premier League in England started, we were having these same discussions then about the Premier League. Those who were traditionalists to the old Division 1, they said the Premier League would kill football. They said that grassroots would be destroyed. They said that the big clubs who wanted to form the Premier League were greedy, and that they wanted to suck dry the essence, the lifeblood out of the football, and to fill their coffers, to fatten their pockets at the expense of every other person, every other team, the others. What do we have almost 30 years later? We have a league that is the best one in the world, best domestic league in the world. And apart from the Champions League, there's no competition that has the glamour and glitz of the Premier League. So I'm saying we've been here before, and every time something radical is proposed, we always hear this hue and cry about the future. I'll say this to you as well, Mariah. The reason I opened my questioning with Simon the way I did was because many of those who were responding to this issue, are responding without giving credence to the fact that the teams will play in their domestic leagues.
Yeah.
They make it seem as if the teams will not play the English Premier League football anymore. They're just going to form a Super League by themselves. And that has helped to fan the emotive flames that has seen people talk about, oh, my football club is going to die. What will football come to? That is not the case. I see a lot of merit in it. It's not perfect, I can go with it.
So, George, you host the Champions League.
Yeah.
Am I going to be seeing you on the ESL?
Because SportsMax will have both competitions.
I would respond to George before the segment closes, though, by suggesting, George, that you said the Premier League was a radical change.
It was.
I compared to this, I don't think it's at the same level.
No.
Because it still is
Remember,
the top
this is
flight
just
in
the who's
England
who.
and relegation and promotion.
Hold on. Radical in 2021, in the context of 2021, is not materially the same as radical in 1991. But for the times, it was seen as radical because you're talking about a system where you have an elite in a Premier League and you have the football pyramid radically reshaped. It was radical, but not radical in every eye, every T, every sense of the word.
It still was the top flight. It still is the top flight, and it just replaced the first division.
But Lance, you were an active, you were well into your career at the time. The fact of the matter is, you remember very well, people said the sky would fall in when the Premier League was proposed. It wasn't, Premier League, yes. It had to be pushed through, and there was staunch resistance to it. And I'm saying this is proposing something a little bit more expansive, but in principle it's the same thing. You're breaking from the norm, you're breaking from what you have come to know and love, and that's what is causing problems.
What I like, though, the only thing I would say the loophole in this argument is that they didn't say, they said they would make provisions for teams that want to come in. I remember reading that, so like it's not set in stone that it's going to be them alone. They had that little part
they'll have 5 open places.
Right.
5, yeah? It's not a lot, but it's 5. Yeah, and I'm just saying that I like it, is what I'm saying.